Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Kiltz's Carnivore Conversations. I'm really excited to have Craig Emmerich here today. And Craig is an international best-selling author of Keto, the Complete Guide, and the Carnivore Cookbook. He uses his knowledge of how our bodies work to help clients heal and lose weight, leveraging their biology to make it easy. Crag has helped tens of thousands of people regain their health and vitality with a strong focus on the deep science of human nutrition. Craig Emmerich graduated in electrical engineering and has spent his last 15 plus years researching nutrition and working with thousands of clients alongside his marvelous wife, Maria Emmerich, and their two beautiful sons. So welcome, Craig. How are you doing today? And we're so grateful that you're joining us to share the story of why keto and carnivore is so helpful for so many in this world. All right. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Aloha, how are you doing?
Excellent. Aloha to you. How is Hawaii doing?
Amazing, as
Oh,
always. A little rainy today,
yeah.
but a rainy day
It's,
here is like,
it's
an hour of rain and then it's sunny.
how beautiful and wonderful, right? It's so great
Yeah,
for so many people to get that chance. Not many of us get that chance to spend the time out there. Well,
yeah,
but
we're
I've
blessed.
very blessed, very blessed. I guess no matter where you're in this world, there's some blessings to be had, and but to be in Hawaii is great.
Sure.
So, well, welcome and thank you for joining me tonight. And let's see, what time is it out there?
2 p.m.
2 p.m. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Well, we've had a great day. I'm in upstate New York. It's been beautiful, and we're just going to share your thoughts and ideas of health and wellness and nutrition.
Yeah.
And I just started recording, and maybe you can just share with our listeners and watchers a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how did you get to this crazy place of keto and carnivore?
Yeah. We've got an interesting journey. My wife Maria started about 23 years ago or something with her own health. She had some PCOS and some different issues that she was trying to find a solution for. Went to nutrition in college. She studied nutrition and same kind of food pyramid, healthy whole grains kind of stuff. And she's like, I tried that. It's not working. And she went down this path of just learning everything she could from every study and book she could get her hands on. And in the process, implemented it on herself and reversed her PCOS, reversed a lot of her IBS and acid reflux and health issues. Myself, I was an electrical engineer at the time, and I didn't have a pressing health need at the time, and so it took me about, I don't know, 5 years after her to come around and start eating this way, just because of how it made me feel. And so that's like 16 years ago or something like that. And so I've been in this space. I've been eating this way for 16 years, been studying seriously about it for the last 10 or 12 years. Actually left engineering just to do this full time and study biology and nutrition.
And so tell us a little bit about your journey in health issues, if you would be willing to share that with people, and how
Yeah.
it's helped.
Yep. So being keto for 16, 17 years, and my version of keto, I was never one that liked, like, the almond flour desserts or the, lots of big salads or anything. I was always a meat guy, right? I'm always pretty heavy on animal proteins. Even in those early keto days, my non animal protein, foods, that, plant foods would be like sugar-free ketchup on my burger, or maybe some caramelized onions on my burger and that kind of thing. And so I was pretty clean diet and felt really good. And then about 9 years ago, I started having this pain in my lower back. It was
Uh-huh.
right around the time we built our new house, which is right in the middle of this old woods, that had a lot of ticks, and I was out there a lot while we were building it. And uh, because I was keto and because I had my diet in such good shape, I think it allowed me to let it go longer than I should have.
Mhm.
I managed the pain for so long, and about 5 years ago, I finally went in and got tested for Lyme with a proper test, and it said I have Lyme disease. And then that, I believe, led to, well, at that point, I went more strict carnivore, like none of the plants, none of the onions, and just the animal proteins, and that did help my pain, especially my joint pain. It helped reduce it quite a bit, even more from keto. Keto was controlling it quite a bit to begin with, but going completely carnivore helped it even more. And I think what's happened is I've had chronic inflammatory response due to the Lyme that has continued, and that has triggered ankylosing spondylitis. The immune system, when it's like going crazy and won't shut off, eventually it starts to attack healthy cells, and that's an autoimmune reaction. And so I've got like calcification in my vertebrae in my neck, and some joint, back and other issues. But again, the carnivore does definitely help manage the pain from that.
And so from an engineer to a nutritional guru, because I've seen what you share, it's quite amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the need to know the science versus just to share the story?
Yeah. So the thing about engineers, if anybody knows an engineer, they're very much into research and keeping up on the latest. I was doing for parts of my career, I was working with Intel engineers in Haifa, Israel, on the latest, Intel computer chips, CPUs. So, I mean, that kind of stuff, if you're not keeping up on the latest technology that's coming, 6 months, you're out of date. You're
Wow.
behind, right? And so you had to build a sort of habit of constantly researching and understanding new things coming down the pipe. And I think I just kind of held on to that kind of, when I moved into this space. And so I would keep looking and researching and diving deeper into areas of nutrition and biology to understand it better. And that's really what I've done that's been my career the last 10 years. And I got to where we co-authored several books together. Our keto book, I wrote a lot of the front matter and science. Our carnivore book, I wrote all the front matter and science for that one. So it's been an evolution.
What's been wrong with nutritional science in the past, and what are our challenges today that are preventing most people to open up to new ideas?
Boy, it might be easier to list what was right about the nutritional science. I mean, there's so much that in our book Keto, I remember I went over this section where I was like, a lot of what we were told, if we did the opposite, going back to like 70s and 80s kind of nutrition and health science, if we did the opposite, you'd probably be a lot better off as a nation and in general. Whether it's avoid fats, healthy whole grains, all of these, even things like avoid 100% any sun exposure kind of things. Not getting reasonable amounts of sun exposure for vitamin D. And I mean, you could just go down the line of all these issues that they just were completely wrong on, or at least partially wrong. And if you just ignored that advice, you'd probably be better off.
And so, in sharing the science today, what is your thoughts on the thing that is there something all of us should do, or is it really unique and different from each and every one of us?
I think there's some core fundamental aspects that everybody should do. One of them is get enough protein for your lean mass, for your body size. Everybody's a little different, right? Protein goal, if you will, for some 5 foot tall thin woman is going to be completely different than a 200-pound muscular man that has a lot more muscle to maintain. And so that's very individual. But everybody, I believe, should get that minimum amount of protein every day. And that's because, amino acids, you need amino acids to, the autophagy is happening all the time in your body. That's autophagy is the cellular rebuilding. It breaks down the cellular components and builds new cells. The Nobel Prize winner for autophagy estimated that every 4 months you turn over all your protein cells in your body, which is just incredible. And that's just in general. That's without adding fasting or any of these other things, right? That can increase autophagy. And then you're losing skin all day long, right? You're constantly shedding skin, and you got to replace it. And all these things that you need amino acids in the diet to supply. Also, being zero or low carb, you need some glucose. You do need some glucose for red blood cells that don't have mitochondria, so it can only run on glucose. Some certain brain neurons like to only run on glucose. So you need this little bit of glucose, which the body can produce through gluconeogenesis, turning protein into glucose. But I'd rather have it turn some dietary protein into glucose to supply the body's needs than taking from my own body and using that protein, right? So getting enough protein will also ensure that you get enough to supply the glucose the body might need. But that's the fundamental thing for me is making sure you get enough protein for your size. Because there's also, as you know, the most vitamins and minerals you're going to get are from the protein anyway, right? And for me, getting enough protein is fundamental for anyone.
So when we talk about protein, what would be a good guesstimate or a good number for people to be able to easily calculate the amount of protein they should be consuming each day?
If you want to talk a little more accurate, we typically say like 0.8 to maybe 1 times your lean mass. So lean mass is just total weight minus body fat. So for example, make the math easy, 150-pound person with 33% body fat, that's 100 pounds of lean mass. So you'd be looking at anywhere from 80 to 100 grams of protein for that person. It depends a little bit on situation and condition and whether you're trying to build muscle or you're a bodybuilder, then you can maybe go up a little more. But generally speaking, a rule of thumb that I use that's real easy for everybody to understand is for a woman at 5 foot tall, start with 80 to 90 grams of protein. And then for each inch above that, add 5 grams of protein. So if you're 5'4", you'd add 20 grams to that 80 or 90. So you're talking 100, 110 grams of protein would be what you want to kind of shoot for. For a man, start at 100 grams and then go up at 5 foot and then go up 5 grams for every inch above that.
And what's your thoughts on the amount of fat that we should be consuming and should we be consuming some carbohydrates?
I personally believe the carbohydrates are completely optional. The way we look at it as far as like keto and carnivore, if you're metabolically healthy, so there's definitely certain situations where carnivore would be preferred and would be promoted more. Autoimmune disorders, bipolar, there's some of these digestive issues and Crohn's and these type of issues where carnivore can really help. Outside of that, we look at keto and carnivore as basically a preference of, do you want to have some plants or not? The principles for us are largely the same. Keep the carbs minimal, hit your protein goal, and then as far as fat goes, that's the only variable left, if you do that. And so the fat is really the dial that you adjust based on your goals. If you want to lose some body fat, dial the fat in the diet down a little bit, which will force the body to burn its own stored fat for fuel. And if you want to maintain, you dial it back up a little bit. And if you want to even gain weight, which we've had clients that had Crohn's and were like 89 pounds and needed to gain weight while they healed, you just dial the fat up even more, and then they gain weight while healing.
So in a steady state, do you think there's a ratio of fat to protein? Or again, I'm 5'6", I'm 145, 150 pounds. I feel happy where I'm at. Do I kind of keep it as even pedal, or do I move it one way or another on the dial?
Yeah, so a lot of variables, right? I mean, how active you are. Are you strength training? Are you doing, are you in maintenance or not? So somebody in maintenance, I would just kind of play it initially just by satiety. Just, eat. Make sure you're getting enough protein, but then just as long as you're keeping the carbs low, just eat to satiety. And if that keeps your weight stable, then great. If you're not stable at that weight, or if you're still losing, add some more fat, whether it's, some sauces. One great way is add like some hollandaise sauce to your eggs or your steak, some béarnaise, those kind of things, to up the fat a little more until you find that point where your body maintains.
What's your thoughts on butter, cream, cheeses? Is that something some people maybe should shy away from? Is it acceptable, do you think, for most of us?
It really depends on the person. Again, we poo-poo gluten a lot as this big allergen and this big thing that's a problem for a lot of people, and it is. But there's more people that are sensitive to dairy than there are to gluten, and so there's a lot of people that are sensitive to it, whether they realize it or not. And one of the ways you can really tell is if you eliminate it for a few weeks or a month, and then you add dairy back in. If you retain like overnight like 2 or 3 pounds of water, you're probably sensitive to dairy, and your body's retaining water because it's having a reaction to it, or breakout, or any of the other common sensitivity reactions. If you don't have that, it's totally fine. Dairy's great. I would definitely limit it if weight loss is the goal, and that's something we've seen time and time again over the 20 years of helping clients with this. Is if you cut 100% of dairy out, you see better weight loss. And there's something about dairy. There's actually, when you look at something that is easy to overeat, right? It's just, very palatable, and just cheese or dairy and nuts are two of the things that just, it's easy to overdo. Like you grab a handful of nuts and grab another handful, and it's pretty soon you've eaten a ton of nuts. Same kind of thing with dairy, grabbing a piece of cheese, or it's just easy to overeat. And, that's why cutting dairy nuts usually helps with weight loss.
How do you know if you're getting enough protein? Is there something that'll tell you? I mean, the fat sounds like it's the thing. If you want to gain weight or lose weight,
Yeah,
you kind of dial it up or down. But what are the symptoms and the signs of people that aren't getting enough protein?
One real common one is losing your hair. We see this all the time. I just answered a question on our website of a woman who she tried to do the ratios, 80% fat, 20 or whatever it was, and when she got there, her protein had to be so low for her to get that ratio that her hair started falling out terribly. And that's a very common sign of not getting enough protein, is that your hair will start falling out. I mean, again, back to the body needs amino acids, not just the skin. Skin, it can't really, you think about priority of the body. Where am I going to put my proteins when I've only got a little, right? Where am I going to put those amino acids? Well, hair, who cares about that, right? Like that's a pretty low priority. Skin, I want to replace my skin. I don't want exposed skin, and so it's got to prioritize, and hair is one of the first to get demoted, if you will, for those amino acids, and so you'll see hair loss.
And what do you think is the biggest challenge for people that want to get into the keto and or carnivore space in the sense of their eating habits?
There's a few things. I mean, it depends on the person, but social interactions can be a huge hurdle for people. Getting out in those, get-togethers and whatnot, and the food's around, and everybody's like, "Why don't you have some of this?" or this and that. I think day to day it can be a real challenge for people with cravings and with just those foods, and that's what Maria's great at, is converting those kind of trigger foods or those craving foods into something healthier. So then you can kind of satisfy that craving and stay on track. I think that's key, especially in the beginning. You go out 2 months, 6 months, cravings are going to be so under control that it's not going to be a big issue. But that first couple weeks, man, you better have some keto treats on hand if you're a big sweet person and you're trying to convert over, because the cravings are going to be there.
And getting people to sort of shift from those cravings, what's the sort of the best advice?
I would say in the first few weeks, we use the keto treats, the alternatives, the healthier alternatives that, homemade ones like Maria's keto fudge, or she makes all these great recipes, as a crutch to get you through that transition phase. If sweets are really that big of an issue for you, a lot of people see really good results if they just cut out all sweetness, right?
Yeah.
All sweet flavors. And that's why our cleanse book, our 30-day ketogenic cleanse, that was not only about converting to keto, but also our meal plans in there have 0 sweeteners in them. And that was the idea, is that let's get you transitioned, get the cravings under control, and cut out all that sweet flavor, shift your palate so you're not constantly looking for that sweet taste, and your palate can shift and adjust, and it will if you cut it all out. Like now, if I have something sweet taste to it, because I rarely have anything with stevia or something, it'll taste so sweet to me, compared to where if I was having it every day. Your palate really does adjust, and that will help you long term.
Do you think that the substitute sugars are more valuable to help people get over those sweet cravings versus the white cane sugar, honey?
Yeah, I think they are. And again, we look at it as, we'll provide this as an option. And if you're in a cravings and whatever state where your kid's candy is screaming your name,
yeah,
and the chocolate bar or whatever, and you have in the fridge one of Maria's chocolate fudge recipes, at least it's a better option, right? Like you're getting the better option and staying on track. Won't set you back from converting to keto and all that, adapting. And so it's a better option. And the other thing we look at it is with our kids, right? Our kids eat this way. They eat what we eat pretty much, and but they're still kids, and they like to have some treats occasionally. And so we look at the natural sweeteners as a way to give them treats and cakes for their birthday and these kind of things without all the sugar.
What are your thoughts on fasting? Do you guys talk a lot about fasting? Do you promote it? Do you think that it's important?
Yeah, let's break it into the different types of fasting. And there's
Thank you.
Intermittent fasting, and there's extended fasting, like water only for multiple days. And then there's what we call protein sparing modified fast, which is basically emulating a water fast, but getting just enough protein to maintain your lean mass. Intermittent fasting, to start with, I think it's beneficial to most people. It's a great tool for help limiting snacking and that mindless eating, in the evening or whatever. If you shut down the kitchen at a certain time, it limits that. It comes naturally, I think, to most people that eat this way. It's just 3 meals. It's like, I cut one of the meals out. I'm just not that hungry. Let's just have 2 meals, and I'm fine. So I think it comes real naturally this way too. Personally, between a extended water fast and protein sparing modified fast, I'm going to pick protein sparing modified fast, because largely you're getting the same energy metabolism result, in that you're getting very low energy into the diet in either case. But with protein sparing, you're getting protein, which gives you the vitamins and minerals, the fat, all of the vitamins and minerals that come with protein. You're getting some amino acids to prevent any muscle loss. But again, you still need some glucose. So I want it using the protein from my diet, not from my body, to make that. And so we just look at it as a better alternative.
So what are your thoughts on 1 meal a day on a regular basis, and those that maybe do 2 or 3 day fasting with just water? Do you think that's safe for most of us? Or is it just, it's hard to do for most of us, for sure. But is it dangerous, do you think, for us?
I would look at it this way. With extended fasting, I do think you can do it too much. And I do think it can be used too much in that. Let's talk about, for example, insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is primarily a disease of overstuffed fat cells. Okay, you have something called a personal fat threshold. That is, when I was young, I heard about this, and I never thought it would be influential later in my life. But when we're young, we make new fat cells. Most of us will make new fat cells as we're young. And we get to a certain age, we stop making new fat cells. Okay. And when you stop making new fat cells, now you just fill or empty the ones you have. Right. And the issue with that is if you didn't make a lot of fat cells, either just genetically or environmentally when you were younger, you don't have a lot of fat cells to fill now. Right. And what happens when you overstuff a fat cell? It starts rejecting insulin. And it says, I don't want any more fat in me because I'm too full. I'm going to burst. I can't take any more fat. It rejects insulin. That's insulin resistance. And if too many of your fat cells get stuffed and inflamed, you're insulin resistant, right? The fat has no place to go. And so it'll accumulate in your liver, it'll accumulate in your pancreas, and you're full-blown diabetic metabolic syndrome. That can happen if you're 110 pounds. And we have had clients, one woman was 105 pounds, type 2 diabetic, because she had so few fat cells, but they were all stuffed. And so from that perspective, what reverses insulin resistance? Shrinking the fat cells. Okay. A water fast will do that. So will protein sparing modified fast. That'll help shrink your fat cells. It'll make your body burn its own fat. But you also want to maintain muscle, because what's that do? Gives glucose someplace to go, right? The more muscle you have, more place you have to shove glucose away, right? And as a diabetic, that's important. Water fast, you can lose, if you do it too much, you can lose lean mass. You can lose muscle, which will lower your BMR, because muscle burns calories all day long. And it's not really helping you with insulin resistance, because you're actually reducing the places for glucose to be stored. So for us, we don't usually recommend water-only fasting in general. 1 meal a day, that can be totally fine as long as you hit your protein goal. And that's one thing we have seen with women, especially. Women aren't able to eat as much protein in one sitting as men. And so they might not get their protein goal in that 1 meal. And over time, that could be an issue. But as long as you hit your protein goal, 1 meal a day is fine.
Any particular protein that you recommend over another?
As long as it's animal proteins or eggs, they're all pretty great as far as, nutrients, amino acids, they're all pretty good. They all, little variances. I mean, for sure, I think beef and ruminant animals are probably the tops as far as bioavailability of their vitamins and minerals that are in them and the completeness of their amino acid profile, I would say for sure. But I think all of them, like pork is really high in potassium. Like talk about a banana, forget it. The pork is going to be even higher in potassium, So each has, seafood, oysters, these things can have DHA and omega-3s, that are beneficial. So I think they're all good in their different respects.
Do you think the majority of people are coming to this space for health and wellness or weight loss?
I would say initially 90+% come to us looking for weight loss. But here's the interesting thing. I would say 90+% that stick with this diet, stick with it because of the health benefits, because of how much better they feel, because they're off medications, their symptoms for, you name it, disorder, disease, etc., is greatly reduced. And so that's why they stick with it. The weight loss is just like a bonus, to how good they feel.
Do you think that the history of keto was weight loss and you got to your goal and then you were kind of told, well, you could just go right back? And now the emphasis is on that keto is sustainable, and the sort of the fear of that maybe has been removed. Plus, people are getting more coaching than I think they've ever had before from people like yourself and Maria. that inspires them to stay on the journey, and that they feel so good with the weight loss and this nutritional change that they're inspired to keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a big component of it. There wasn't as much support out there 20 years ago. I mean, nobody even knew the word keto 20 years ago, much less carnivore, right?
Right.
If you go way back in history, you go back to 1910 when they were using keto for seizure control. That wasn't about weight loss. That was about health, right? Helping these kids with seizures. And then it just fell off the map, forever. I would say Dr. Atkins had a lot right in his original work, not the stuff it evolved to later on with the processed food junk and the stuff they make, I think are still on the shelves today. But his original book, his original ideas, I had a lot right. I would say that some of his phases were later, you added in carbs and all these things later on. Maybe I would disagree with that. But I think that's the thing that has really changed, is that there's so many tools, coaches, like you're saying, but also recipes and books and websites to support this lifestyle as a lifestyle, not just a quick fix diet and then you go back to something. You can literally translate. Maria has a recipe for literally almost anything you can imagine, just made with some different ingredients to be keto. And so I think it makes it a lot easier to make it a lifestyle then.
Yeah, I knew Atkins way back when, and I used it, but I never knew keto with that. And once before, and I learned keto from you and Maria, actually, and that really, I went from Atkins, paleo, and then keto, Emmerich, and then from there it was carnivore, and never looking back. And there's such advantages, but I think. Tell me what your thoughts are on sort of the keto carnivore space. What have you found so valuable about it in general? Because I know you guys both write a lot, you speak a lot, you share a lot, blog much, and tell us sort of what your general sense is of this compared to maybe other weight loss and health and wellness nutritional ideas.
I'd have to go back to the health aspect again. We get, like I said, most people come, it's like, I want to lose 20 pounds or this or that. And then they realize, man, the mental clarity I get all day. I never have any slump in energy in the afternoon, and all of these aspects. I think whether it's through our blog or our books and the comments and things we have coming back, it's so amazing to me, the appreciation that people have for, like, I never knew I could feel this good. Like, I feel like I'm a new person. Like that will forever be the most rewarding thing for me about this, in this community, in this space, is that the people just, it's like they have their life back, right? Like, and I think that is so incredible, and I'm so blessed to be able to help people with that.
Yeah, it seems to be such an upbeat, positive environment that I found myself in this keto carnivore space. And nutritional health finally found the right target, the right dialing in, the right channel. That I don't know that there's any turning back from this. This seems like it. Would you agree, or you think we're still searching for maybe there's something better?
I mean, I can't see anything else. I mean, for myself, and for what we look at it and we talk with our clients, keto carnivore, it's like, and even to some extent low carb, like, if you're an athlete, it's like elite athlete, like Zach Bitter, below 100 grams of carbs is probably totally fine for you, if that's your preference, but you probably don't need it either. So it's about preference, but I think that every single person in that spectrum will do better. Somewhere in that spectrum, from carnivore to keto to maybe some parts of low carb, you're going to do better, and you're going to be better off health-wise. And 20 years of doing this, and got, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of clients and people we've worked with, I've never seen anybody that didn't feel better eating this way.
Yeah. It is miraculous. And again, in the standard Western medical arena, along with the standard Western nutritional space, there's nothing that shows up anywhere near this. I mean, keto, low carb, high fat, keto, carnivore concepts really blow out of the water every other diet ever out there.
I think they do, definitely, especially with compliance, what's the number one negative of any diet? Lack of compliance, right? People fall off the wagon because they're starving all the time, because it's like, counting points or whatever, and they're just starving all day long and they can't stick to it, right? And so I think that is the most powerful thing of this lifestyle.
Yeah, so people feel better, they're more inspired, and they get really great tasting food, and you can't go wrong with that.
Exactly. There's no other lifestyle for me.
Yeah, there really isn't. So you grew up, like most of us, I suspect, a standard Western eater. Did you suffer as a child and any other things? You mentioned your Lyme's and your other issues with your neck and some pain. Did you have any problems as a child that you could look back at, you didn't know about, or you think, wow?
Not really. I was blessed to be pretty healthy all my life. And that's one of the reasons it took me like 5 years after Maria to come around, is because I didn't really have any health issues. And, I had maybe 30 pounds of extra weight that I probably could have got, I could have definitely gotten rid of at the time. And I did. But at the time, it didn't bother me. And, I was fine with it. But yeah, no health issues all my life until this Lyme situation came up.
I think in some way some of these things just are sort of natural and normal, whether it's headaches or belly aches or aches and pains or extra 10, 20, 30 pounds. It seems natural and normal. And that's maybe how we treat it in medicine. Well, this is natural and normal. Here's this and this and this. And you're just unlucky, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what led Maria down this path too, is she had all these issues, and the doctor she saw at the time just said, here's 3 or 4 prescriptions. Those are the cards you're dealt. Nothing you can do about it. And genetics. And then she goes, a week later, our dog was losing patches of its hair, take it into the vet. First question, what are you feeding her? The doctor never asked her that, right? And I mean, that was Maria's light bulb moment right there. But, I think diet and nutrition can fix so much of what ails us today. It can either be the cause or the cure. And so I think, focusing on that is definitely the biggest number one step for anyone. But I would say too, for myself, one of the things we have to be careful of too in this community is it's definitely not a cure all for everything, right? Like, Lyme is a spirochete. You're going to get bit by that tick, and it's going to get in you, and it's going to cause problems for certain numbers of people, and your diet's going to do nothing about that, right? Like, that's, it's not a cure-all for everything, but it can be hugely beneficial for so many things.
Well, if you think about the microbes, the bacteria, yeast, viruses, tuberculosis killed a tremendous amount of people throughout, and they're still the same thing. And so keto carnivores, we're all going to get, there's going to be something that's going to kill us eventually. Yeah. And I'm not sure we have the data to say, well, if you're carnivore, you're going to live an extra 20 years. We haven't found that one yet.
Yeah.
And certainly maybe we're reducing the symptoms from the most common diseases. But if you get stung by a bee or a wasp and you happen to have an allergy to it, or you're bitten by a particular mite or tick, those things can come upon us, and you're not necessarily going to stop it. It's possible maybe we'll reduce some of the side effects, but we don't know that.
Yeah, and it definitely reduces my inflammation. It helps greatly with my pain, so I know it's helping for sure. But yeah, I mean, certain things you're just not going to be able to stop from happening, but you can definitely manage it, and this lifestyle definitely helps.
What are your thoughts on the use of diet versus nutrition? And I hear you say it, and I know many of us say it. And you think that there's a difference in what it is, Or is it really just the difference how we perceive these words? Because diet is like, oh my God, they tell me to lose weight again, and it's failure. It'll never work. It can't happen.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. To me, diet is the foods you select to eat, right? That's your diet. And like, for example, you know, you always get those naysayers or whatever, then say, you cut out whole food groups with keto. How do you do that? Like grains and stuff. I would look back to them and say, okay, do you eat any organ meat? You don't? You cut out whole food groups? Like, you're just selecting these things instead of these things. To me, it's all the same. It's just whatever pattern of eating or whatever preference of foods that you have in your eating, that's your diet.
What inspired you to switch from keto to carnivore? Was there someone you were inspired by, a book? What was that thing that said, "Oh, maybe I'll try that"? It looks.
That would be my wife. She, she had all these improvements in her health and lost the extra weight and all that when she was doing all this to herself.
Yeah.
And then she would just, make my food for me. And I'd still be working, in an office for my engineering job, and she would pack my lunch for me. And during the whole week, I would pretty much eat whatever she made. And then on the weekends, I would eat whatever I wanted. And I just started to realize, man, I feel really good during the week, and I feel like crap on the weekends. And it got to the point where I just decided I didn't want to feel like that anymore on the weekends, and I cut it out, and felt much better.
Anyone else in the space that you think is really giving some home run information, inspiring people that you look towards?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, it depends a little bit on category, right? Like Dave Feldman is doing amazing work on cholesterol and the whole lean mass hyperresponder and what that means for this space. I think that's some very important work that he's doing. We support him, and I encourage others to do it. He just closed up a study, the initial screenings for the study that he's working on. So I think he's a huge, we're a big fan of his. There's others that I definitely like. I'm a kind of an energy metabolism guy. I really like, how the body processes fuels and how that works. And Dr. Ted Neiman is great on understanding energy metabolism and the science behind it. So yeah, I'm a fan of his. But yeah, I mean, obviously your work with fertility and I love my wife's work and the recipes she puts out for sure.
Well, they're spectacular, and that we've collaborated on a fertility keto for fertility cookbook, which really people are loving immensely. And
Awesome.
I'm looking for us to do more on that. And it really is Maria that's inspired me on this journey more than anyone. So we're so grateful to her never-ending energy that she's always there. What are your thoughts on exercise? Do you think it's important? Can we overdo it? Do you think, and there's some particular areas, do you think we should all focus on more than others?
Yeah. So for weight loss, I would say weight loss is about 90% diet. Like you're not going to exercise your way out of a bad diet.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Getting the diet right is the most important part for weight loss, and in some ways for healing as well. But I would say if you can, add strength training, especially, I think it's really important. And strength training, because muscle is so important as we age, especially. You get over 40, 50, 60 years old, and there's something called the leucine curve shift. Leucine is amino acid that's primarily responsible for triggering muscle protein synthesis. It's kind of like a signaling molecule, if you will. If you get enough leucine in your diet, your body starts building muscle and maintaining muscle. It shifts as we get older. And so as we get older, you need more and more leucine just to maintain your muscle, and much less build it. And that's why so many people have sarcopenia when they get older, because they're not getting enough protein. And what happens when you get older and you get sarcopenia and you're not able to, you break a hip when you fall, or you're, in a wheelchair? That's not quality of life. So I think that's one of the most important things.
So movement, some resistance work,
Yeah.
and the treadmill isn't, just the run isn't necessary.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not, doesn't hurt, cardiovascular and the breathing and all that aspect of that health is great. And if you want to include some of it, but I wouldn't look at it as, okay, I've got to run X amount to burn off this whatever I ate kind of thing, on the treadmill. And I do think you can definitely overdo it in a number of ways with exercise. One of it, we get clients a lot of times that they won't think that 90% diet for weight loss. They'll think it's like, 50-50. So they think they have to hit the gym so hard. And when they do that, you hit training or running and running and running, you just end up more hungry, and you end up with more cravings, and you end up eating more than if you just, were moderate or on the exercise or did a little strength training instead.
Anything particular that you've learned from your clients that you think has inspired you more than any?
Oh, what's possible with
Yeah.
diet? Like, that is about 10 years ago, I started saving these testimonies we were getting from people. And I have this folder now in my email of, I don't know, 3,000 or something testimonies. And I can literally go in there and just type a condition and get 5 testimonies of people who, with that condition, Parkinson's, saw huge improvements, in their symptoms. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's incredible what is possible just with diet. Kids on the autism spectrum
Mhm.
who just with diet changes end up on a whole new level of the autism spectrum just by eating some different foods. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Any particular books outside of the dietary nutritional space that you think are important for us?
Oh boy, that's an interesting one. I haven't read a ton of books outside of the nutrition space lately. It's between homeschooling my boys and running our business and keeping up on nutrition science and the books we're writing. It's been tough. I'm trying to.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
Because you
Some days
guys
I don't know.
do remarkable in raising those beautiful children.
Thank you.
The blogging, the videos, the cooking, the cookbooks. Um, it must be a mighty grand journey that you guys are so passionate to continue to share with people.
Yeah, it's definitely the passion to help people. I mean, that's a big part of it. Maria shared the story on our webinar the other day with our clients. My birthday's on Christmas Day, and we don't, can't really go out to eat or whatever. So we usually, a couple weeks later, we'll go out and do something. And so we went to a luau here on the island, and I always enjoy the show and everything. And during one break in the music, I was on my phone answering. Somebody had asked me a question on our Facebook group, and so tagged me. So I was answering the question, and Maria's like, "It's your birthday, and we're at a luau, and you're answering." So, but they need help.
Yeah.
They need help, and they want my help, and I'm gonna do my best to help them. And I think that's what drives us by far. It takes a lot of organizing and a lot of hard work. Maria's cooking all the time to supply food for everyone and the kids. I swear
Yeah.
my boys eat a couple pounds of meat every day. It's crazy the way they're growing. Mike has grown like 6 inches the last year. But and we work together really well. I think that's the key too, is, she has so many things that she's so good at. I'm really good at keeping the website working and dealing with, the ebook, formatting and all the technology stuff. And so we really complement each other really well.
What's on the horizon for the next book or cookbook?
I think Maria is doing a little ebook on holidays, which will be kind of fun just to kind of the, celebrations book of get-togethers and good foods to bring and have for holidays. I think that's the next one.
Do you think there's a space for people to get to, and maybe some are better than others, that really the holidays are meant to be from time to time, but not every day?
Yeah.
And so part of the problem with nutrition is that we take in those time to time holidays and made them every day. And so those things that we shouldn't eat, but from time to time we eat all the time. And that's the real cause of most disease, rather than that special thing to have 2 to 5 times a year.
Yeah, definitely. I like to tell this story of, you remember Little House on the Prairie? Remember that show that was on for a long time? I remember one of the episodes where it was Christmas and they each got a penny to go to the general store and get one piece of candy. That was their one piece of candy for the year, right?
Yeah.
And that's not that long ago. And we definitely have evolved into this place where it's constant. And I remember a story too of a parent who I can't remember what grade it was in the class, like some elementary grade, 5th grade or 4th grade or something, and where the teacher celebrated their birthdays with like a big birthday party with like cupcakes and all the stuff. And they had to do it for every kid, of course, right? And then when you do the math, the kids in the summer, they had to celebrate them too, so they, fit them in. And how many weeks there are in the school, they were doing a, cake party every week.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like you're saying, it's like it needs to be a special occasion. It's a treat. It's meant to be a treat. That's, our boys are the same. We, they'll have, maybe a couple holidays of the year, like a Halloween and their birthday. We'll have, these sweet treats we'll make, or cakes or whatever, but they largely don't eat that stuff in the rest of the year.
And in our ancient environment, thousands of years ago, maybe millions of years ago, if you believe it, we didn't have access to those things.
No, I mean, you look back to the medieval days, and when they started, sugar and stuff started coming out, the kings got, this big because they were indulging in that too much. But yeah, I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, I mean, it's been a blip. You go back to only go back 100, 150,000 years to our early ancestors, the Neanderthals and early humans. They had you might run into some fruit occasionally, out there, like early humans in Neanderthals, primarily in Europe. You're going to be snow most of the year, or half of the year, I should say. And then you're going to be primarily filling up on animals. I saw a recent study about some of the elephants, the giant elephants. They were 150,000 years ago, tool marks on these giant elephant bones. And by the size of the bones, they calculated it could feed a tribe of 30 of these Neanderthals for a month on this one animal kill. So, I mean, these are apex carnivores. They're primarily eating animal proteins, and they might be opportunistic, fruit here and there, but that's it.
Well, I like watching nature shows, and polar bears are one of my favorites because they spend a tremendous amount of time searching for food and not finding it, and not getting their kill. And they go a tremendous amount of the season where they just can't find it very easily. And so my sense is that we likely went longer than we can imagine without food. And we don't know hunger truly for most of us. Our starvation isn't, most of us were starving and we're mostly carrying excess weight.
Yeah, I would say, again, back in those days, 100,000 years ago, they put on probably a fair amount of weight in the summer just to get through the winter, right? Because, what are you eating in the winter? There's zero plants available, and animals are going to be tough, and to catch in the winter. So there's going to be definitely leaner times in the winter. So they added fat in the summer by, gorging, and when they had that huge kill, they were feasting. So yeah.
And they got fat on fat.
Yeah, they had to, right? If they're apex carnivores, they had to put on fat in the summer.
And we're getting fat on sugar.
Yeah, today, because sugar primarily displaces fat for oxidation, right?
Yeah.
Oxidative priority. So if you eat carbs and sugar, the fat that you're also eating will get stored as you're burning the carbs and sugar. So you're just displacing the fat to be burned by having the carbs. If you cut the carbs out, now there's no displacement and you just burn the fat.
Yeah. You feed your children this way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on pregnant women, lactating, breastfeeding women, and children that are done breastfeeding?
So, as far as just diet, nutrition in general?
Yeah. Do you think that the keto carnivore has an absolute place for that group?
I definitely do. I mean, your work has shown it, but we've seen tons of clients outside of, working with you that, they'll talk about the best pregnancy they've ever had, being keto or carnivore during it. We've got anecdotal evidence of basically golden milk, it's called, where you have breast milk that's so rich and fatty from eating this way that the baby drinks a lot less, because it's getting so much nutrient dense, from that, and they sleep better during the night as a result, and those kind of anecdotal things that we see with clients. But I think it's great for all stages of fertility, like you're doing, as well as through pregnancy and breastfeeding.
One of the things that we see in our current evidence-based medicine is that the majority of what we're learning today is actually from social media and individual experiences of success. Do you think in some way that we really need to have some randomized study to prove it, or is the proof in the individuals?
Well, I would say for the N=1, so for me, I don't really, the only thing that matters is how I feel and how it works for me, right?
Yeah.
I've worked, excuse me, we worked a bit with Dr. I just forgot his name for some reason. We've been working a lot on just because we have these thousands of examples of clients with amazing results. Dr. Westman, I don't know why that totally. Dr. Eric Westman has been trying to put more of these kind of N=1 things out there because of that reason, right? Because it's so hard to get millions of dollars to do a randomized controlled trial on things, and we have so much evidence of N=1, N=many that show incredible potential. He's been working hard on getting some papers out there in the literature so that others can see it and say, "Ooh, this is interesting." They had some pretty amazing results here. One of the recent ones he did was in conjunction with Dr. Georgia Eid, looking at, I think it was 20 patients that were resistant to the, they had the mental issues that they had, the drugs were resistant to it. Okay. And then these people don't have a lot of options, right? Because they've tried all the drugs and nothing's really working. Every single one of them saw a significant decrease in symptoms with a keto carnivore diet, right? And then they posted this in a study of this case study of these 20 patients. Schizophrenia, I think, was primarily the issue. But, that kind of stuff I think is really important. And like you said, I don't care about 50 studies saying, this isn't going to work for you if it actually works for me, right? If it actually works for me and makes me feel better and I get off my medications and all my health markers get better, I don't really care what the study says.
Well, and since, let's see, you do a study and you submit it to be published and it's either accepted or rejected, and it's often accepted or rejected based on the belief system of the the publication and what their mission of selling an idea really is. So as hard as we may push, the best way to share this is actually through social media, which is growing.
I recently saw a study that looked at studies and saw that as much as 45% of them were basically completely biased because of who funded the study, and they were looking for a certain result. Like Kellogg's funds a study and obviously bias, and up to 45% of all studies had this level of bias built into them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a problem for sure.
I suspect it's much higher than that.
Yeah.
Because it has to be in I think in medicine, but the standard for us physicians was, well, if there isn't paper written about that, then I'm not going to believe it. And there is a tendency for us in medicine and science, we're very disbelieving of other scientists and other ideas that are opposite, rather than being curious and inquisitive of the possibilities that there's something opposite of what we know today.
Yeah, I was towards the end of my career, I was a product manager for healthcare informatics type systems, as well as imaging software for like scanning, like CT scans, PET scans, those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, the amount of healthcare moves at a glacial pace when it comes to change. It's like you have to have a mountain of evidence and all of this stuff before the standards kind of finally shift as far as what all the doctors are going to do in that direction. And I think that's a big problem. I mean, technology, especially with technology these days and how fast things move and change, I think that glacial speed in healthcare can really be detrimental.
And if you look at humanity, I don't think there's anything we all agree on.
Yeah.
As humans, right? So there's always the opposite, and no matter what you believe, I'm going to believe something different, and I don't care what you say. And so the beauty is to be open and ask a question on vegan, vegetarians, Mediterraneans in finding a keto solution. Do you agree that there's some keto solution for everyone?
I think you can definitely, are you saying like make a keto vegetarian version or something like that?
Certainly for vegetarians, I think there's a space because eggs, cream, butter for that group. The vegan is harder, but with coconut oil and fasting and I don't know where you get your complete protein.
Well, that's the problem I have with vegan.
Right?
I don't think you can get enough complete protein to maintain muscle as you age. I just don't think it's possible.
So there's always a need for a supplement, but can you supplement your amino acids? Meaning that it may not be as nutritionally available.
Well, that too is, I mean, vitamins and minerals are going to be an issue because animal proteins are one of the most nutrient dense foods. But also the amino acid profile, you're probably going to be doing something like a pea protein powder at that point, because you just can't eat enough peas to get enough protein. And then the pea protein powder, it's the PCDAA score, the protein digestibility score. You'd have to, compared to like egg white protein, you'd have to eat, it's like 40% as complete of a protein. So you're going to have to eat more than double of the pea protein powder just to get the same amount as egg white protein powder. And I mean, it's just, there's no real good complete proteins in the vegan space.
Well, I always thought protein comes from muscles.
Yeah.
Essentially, is that what we pretty much thought? So can there really be protein in peas?
There is, it's just not the same amino acid profile is going to be in your muscles, right? And that's the problem.
And so the best approach for keto is, I'm going to use the Mediterranean, meaning that you can find something in the Mediterranean sort of concept to pick and choose and find a keto way of living.
Yeah, I mean, I recently saw an article, I think it was Mark Sisson did another article on this, that it was, if you look at the real Mediterranean diet, like the real ancestral Mediterranean diet, it looks nothing like a vegetarian diet. It looks nothing like what people would say is Mediterranean diet now. They ate a lot more seafood, fish, protein. So, there's that whole bias as well. Like there's a study that talked about the blue zones and how the blue zones, if you look at every one of these blue zones, they had really poor, they're small towns, small places that had really poor birth records 100 years ago. And so all these centenarians really may not be centenarians. And if you actually look it through, if you adjust it as the people, get older and they have good birth records, suddenly their average age comes back more in line with other cultures. So it's really just kind of a poor birth record situation in a lot of these places that is causing some of these blue zones to be high.
We're storytellers.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And we love stories, and that's the most important thing. Is there anything that I may not have asked, and something that you really wanted to make sure that people heard?
Nothing that I can. I mean, we covered a lot. I mean, maybe about our kids a little more. Like we touched on it here and there. Our sons came. We adopted them from Ethiopia when they were 1 and 2. And they came here at like 2%, 3% on the height and weight charts because the nutrition in Ethiopia wasn't great at the orphanage. And we started feeding them what we ate. Our first solid foods for our son Kai was bone marrow and egg yolks and maybe some salmon, crumbled up real small so he could just eat it with his hands and melt in his mouth. Hamburger, that kind of stuff. And both of them shot to within 1 year to 50% on the height and weight charts. And after 2 years, they're at 75% on the height and weight charts, and they stayed there. And these are kids that, they're for sure low carb, if not keto level of carbs, because they don't really have a sweet tooth. And they just eat what we eat, and they're thriving. Like I said, my son Micah's grown like 6 inches this past year, and he's 13 years old, and he's in high school algebra 2. He's just smart as a whip, and if you go back to, again, those baby foods, one of the things I'm passionate about that drives me nuts is we go from breast milk, which everybody would say is best food for a baby, right? It's high in saturated fat. It's high in cholesterol. It's got a decent amount of protein. And what do we switch them to? Go to the store and look at baby foods. It's basically a vegetarian, no fat, very low to no protein food. Mm-hmm. These puffs and these
sugars.
All carbs and sugar, like pea purees and carrot purees and all this crap. And it's like, what are we doing? Like these kids need, their brain is the biggest source of cholesterol in the body. You need healthy fats. You need amino acids to help these kids grow and thrive. And that's a big passion of ours. We wrote our Sugar-Free Kids book not too long ago for that reason.
Well, there's American Journal of OBGYN came out with an expert's review of nutrition for pregnant and breastfeeding moms, and Mediterranean diet was number 1, and red wine was within that diet for pregnant and breastfeeding moms. So, and then they went down to vegan vegetarians. They poo-pooed Atkins, paleo, and keto, and didn't even touch carnivore, unfortunately. But the complete disregard for the true science of the human body is shameful to me in my profession. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about joining with you and Maria and others in how to help all of us lead healthy, vibrant, and energetic lives. And I know as a student, as a child, I had dyslexia, ADHD, OCD. I also had the migraines and bowel problems, but I was highly disruptive and I couldn't read and I couldn't participate in school. So consequently, I had troubles, but thankfully I evolved out of them, and you're helping that everyone evolve into a more vibrant and exciting, joyful life, and enjoying food through Maria and your cooking and your books. And So once again, thank you so much, Craig, for being here tonight. I appreciate it and enjoying for you in the afternoon in Hawaii. Quick to everyone, where can we all find you? And we're going to put links to all of this for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate you having me on the show. Generally, you can just go to ketomaria.com. I made that page to get to everything else. It's one page, you get to our blog from there, our website for ebooks and support and all that. And at the bottom is links to all of our social media accounts. So ketomaria.com, you can get to everything.
Keto Maria, we're going to make sure that everyone gets there, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon with your family. And again, we look forward to seeing you guys very soon and some meet up, I'm sure, but certainly continue to follow you guys online. So thank you so much.
Thank you again.
All right, go. What's the plan for the rest of the evening?
Right now, probably going to go eat some dinner. It's probably going to be I love a few burgers with, bunless burgers. They're one of my favorite dinners. So looking forward to that. Maybe on alumni.
What's the best local meat you get there?
Maui Cattle Company is great. They have it's all grass fed. It's on island here. You can see them up in the on the volcano, on the hills, the cattle. And what's really cool is you can go to their processing plant here on the island. You can call ahead and say, I want, they make these 5-pound bags of hamburger. You can say, I want 5 bags of hamburger. I want 20 fillets, and you get them cheaper than in the store. It's awesome. So
local is one of those things that's so important for people to search out. And I know Maria loves to hunt. So finding something local is really important to sustainability and in our future.
Absolutely. And actually, we're considering doing a hunt here. There's a axis deer, and it's become actually a nuisance species now because population's gotten so big. And it's really good, really tasty venison. So we're going to maybe hunt one of those before we head back and stock the freezer.
Are there any other predators on Hawaii other than humans and cars?
On the island, no, not really. So that's part of the problem is that the axis deer are getting overpopulated, and there's so much private land that it's hard to hunt them. You got to get permission, but they're getting to be a nuisance.
Well, again, thank you so much, Craig. I look forward to sharing with you again soon. And anything I can do, you let me know, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless. I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right. That was really a wonderful podcast. And thanks for joining. And don't forget to check out drkiltz.com and Kiltz's Mighty Tribe and the 30-day carnivore course, which we're still offering. The special included is Kiltz's Keto is carnivore and the daily inspirations, digital format. So again, thank you for being here. Dr. Rob Kiltz, bless, be well, God bless.